Hello, I'm Colleen Gallagher, CEO at Onward and Upward, and you're listening to the Association 100 Podcast, where each week we interview association leaders from across the country to hear how they're trying new things, taking big risks, and delivering value for their members. We'll explore the realities of what it means to work in and with associations and bring you the insights and inspiration you need to advance your career and make big changes at your association. Let's get started. Welcome back to the A100 Podcast. I'm your host, Colleen Gallagher, and I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. This will be one of our last episodes of 2024. It's hard to believe this year is coming to an end already. You are in for a treat with today's conversation, though, especially if you're involved in the event planning for your association. I'm joined by Phil Alongi, the president and CEO for Alongi Media. Phil is really great at what he does, and I've had the pleasure of working with him and his team before and also consider him a friend. He is an Emmy Award-winning production executive with nearly 20 years in unscripted news, live event, and documentary production experience. He served as showrunner and executive producer at Big Fish Entertainment, where he launched and produced the first two sessions of Live PD Wanted, part of the wildly successful Live PD franchise on A&E. He also produced over 1,000 hours of live content when he was the director of program development and executive producer of NJTV News, where he oversaw and was responsible for program expansion in the areas of news, public affairs, arts, and documentaries. He began his broadcast career at NBC News back in 1997, and during his tenure at the network, he produced for Nightly News, The Today Show, News at Sunrise, and numerous national specials that we've all heard of. He's covered 6 presidential election cycles and is getting ready to produce another inauguration, covered the Millennium Y2K, the Second Gulf War, the shooting at Columbine, and dozens of other major news events. So he really, truly knows his way around live production, and I'm very excited to have him on today. Phil, thanks so much for joining me on the A100 today.
Hi, Colleen. How are you?
I'm doing great. So for our listeners who don't know who you are, Alongi Media has a pretty impressive history producing some groundbreaking events. Tell me a bit more about your journey as a company and your team's expertise.
Sure. Yeah. So again, thank you for having me. So I've been a journalist most of my career. I started off, did 8 years at NBC at the network, producing first shows like The Today Show, Nightly News, and then moved on. I was the news director for the New Jersey station of PBS. And then I launched a true crime show on A&E that was going really well until all the crime shows went off the air in the middle of the pandemic. And my father's also a TV producer. We had flirted with the idea of building out a company for a while. And so we joined forces, and Alongi Media is a network of producers, writers, directors. It's a really great team. The best part about owning your own business is you only have to work with people you like, which is great. But they also are very talented. Collectively amongst us, we have over 150 Emmys now, I think, to our collective credit. We do lots of live events, broadcasts, corporate clients, and videography. And at the heart of what we do is we say we're storytellers.
And I mentioned in the intro that I've had the opportunity to work with you before and consider you a friend as well. And I think it was a couple months ago now that I got a text from you that you had this cool new production asset and you wanted to chat, and called you up and you're telling me about this 4K mobile truck. Tell me about it.
Every boy's dream to build the truck. Yeah. And look, I called you, Colleen, because I have so much respect for your hustle. And I see you on LinkedIn every single day, messaging, networking, telling stories yourself. And so I'm glad to be part of the A100 podcast to help tell mine. So yeah, so we built a mobile production unit. It's basically a control room on wheels. It houses normally 12 cameras on board, but we can take up to 40 at any time. And so that rolls around the country to all different trade shows and conventions, political debates and town halls, broadcasts and streams, all kinds of stuff.
Tell me what makes this so innovative and why is it different from other trucks or other live production methods that are out there?
Yep. So as we started to do more trade shows and conventions specifically, you know how that hustle is. When you get in, you have a very short amount of time to build out. You're often relying on local labor and local talent. There are lots of different local labor laws. The power availability in some of these buildings is inconsistent. Sometimes you need to get backup generators. There's a whole plethora of things. And so what we did is we built out a truck that that we say is exceptional, affordable, and sustainable. And what we mean by that is that it broadcasts in 4K and 4K HDR. It is sustainable in that we built a series of very large lithium battery banks and power inverters with solar panel hookups. We can bring the mobile unit in fully charged, and it runs for about 14 hours, even with the air conditioning blowing on a pretty warm day, which is pretty remarkable. What it translates to for our clients is that when that mobile unit pulls up, within 10 minutes, we can get to work. There's no taking cases off of the truck and rolling things in and dealing with labor and cabling and everything else, and then troubleshooting because cables and their connectivity can be inconsistent. Everything is pre-wired, ready to go. So it gives us time and bandwidth to just concentrate on building out the scenic and the set, but not the mobile broadcast facilities, which has been a game changer. It cuts down, on average, usually cuts a full day off of the load-in time.
Yeah, that's amazing. Having spent many years on the association side, I remember just the time you had to build in for that when you got to your conference or convention. It's not insignificant for sure.
No, it's not. And it's not fun for us to be waiting around either. As the producers, like, we want to get to work when we're on site. So it's great to have the battery bank is on board. We flip a switch and the truck is ready to go. And there's no waiting for auxiliary power. There's no waiting till cables are set up. Like I said, you can just pop in your chair. You can start working on your storytelling.
Yeah, that's really cool. We've probably chatted about this before, but my very first job was the Consumer Tech Association. And they put on the big CS show in Vegas and all the cool electronics. So I have been a tech nerd for a long time now. And I remember when the first 4K TVs came out, how cool that was. I love following all of the enhancements. But for our everyday listener who might not be as excited about that as I am, what's going to be the difference in quality for attendees when they have that 4K experience?
Sure. Yeah. So it also, the thing is, when you talk about the TVs and the consumer electronics and all, I think it feels like TVs are the only thing that's getting cheaper as time passes, for everything else is astronomically increasing in price. It just seems like TVs get cheaper and cheaper. Which I'm not in the business of TV. I'm totally okay with that. But no, the difference is that, especially in post-production. So what I mean by that is any camera capture that you want to later put onto social networks, or if you want to use for messaging or promotion and marketing materials, things like that. You can, for instance, punch in the video so that you can magnify it doubly close and not lose any resolution. It's still in full high def for any of your social networks, which is really helpful. The cinematic lenses that we have and the cameras that we bring on site allow for more dramatic shooting. So when you want to really focus on a subject point, you can, what we call a shallow depth of field. So you'll see a subject and the rest of it blurs out. So you're not getting lost in the backgrounds. It's a real popular look that you see, again, in more in film than you do on TV. And we're all broadcast professionals that produce movies and films all the time. And there's no reason now, with the advent of a lot of this new technology, that it can't be accessible to trade shows and conferences. And that's been our niche, is that we're not an AV company. We've come in as producers that are coming with an eye towards keeping the production value super high so that it looks more expensive than it does.
That's cool. We first crossed paths with the Global Business Travel Association annual convention, and you all just recently entered a new partnership with them. So I'd love to hear both about what you've done with GBTA and then what this new partnership is and how that's evolving and changing with this new production truck that you have.
Yeah, GBTA is one of our favorite clients. We've been producing their shows since 2015, and it's evolved dramatically over time. And so we've just entered, like you said, a longer term partnership now, where we're responsible for producing their main stage from soup to nuts, but we also produce a broadcast studio, which sets up in their expo floor, gives them an opportunity for them to control their messaging for whatever is important to the association at that time. It gives them a revenue stream that they can use as part of their sponsorship packages. But one of the most exciting new parts of our relationship is I was up at GBTA in Canada in their Toronto show last year. And as part of their sustainability initiative, they were talking about how organizations needed to step up and meet their corporate responsibility. And everybody says everybody would like to be greener. There's usually a cost involved in it. But I saw it as, it was an eye opener for me. It felt like the right thing to do, number one. And it also felt like an opportunity to set myself up as a differentiator in the marketplace where I have a mobile unit that we were building at the time that I went back to the team and said, hey, can we make this solar powered? And the immediate answer was not, no, I don't think so. And you can't capture that much power in the cells. We said, okay, let's think about it though. How slowly could you trickle it in? And what if we put battery banks? How many battery banks? How heavy would it be? And we went and did something that has not been done before. We worked very closely with a solar vendor, and we built in these massive battery banks that added, I would say, probably $60,000 or $70,000 to the overall build of the truck. But it gave us the only one of its kind. I went back to GBT. I told them, I said, hey, we put our money where our mouth is here, and we'd love for you to do the same. You can incorporate this into your shows. I said, it's an 85% reduction in the carbon footprint on the broadcast side alone. It also cuts down that full day of setup that we talked about in the beginning of our recording here. And that translates to it's greener, it's better quality, and it's cheaper. You make an offer like that, it's impossible to ignore. And so we were thrilled, first of all, that they contributed and gave us the idea in the first place to build this out. And we're really excited that it's going to launch at GBTA for the first time this coming summer in Denver.
That's so cool because sustainability is becoming a growing priority for really a lot of associations. Are you guys able to do things like give them numbers? So this is the carbon footprint because of the tools we're using. Is that something that you'll be able to provide associations?
Yeah, and that's so important to them and so many others as we're trying to figure out how to audit our processes. And for instance, the behind the scenes control room in past years had 200 amp service as far as what the electric draw is. And this entire mobile unit, even with the AC running, is about 35 amps, which is an incredible reduction. And it's something that I think is going to be a differentiator for a long time. I think we've future-proofed ourselves and also just made our workflow easier. You can just roll into a space, like I said, and get right to work.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you mentioned you've been doing this, at least with GBTA, since 2015. So you guys know associations and their challenges pretty well. I'm curious what is the most common production challenges for associations when it comes to those big annual events?
Oh, cost. Everybody's at cost. Everyone's watching their budget. I totally understand that, especially as a business owner. I get it. But we've set up our facilities in a way that you don't have to sacrifice production value to keep the cost down. And we proved that this year. The GBTA is now going to have all 4K broadcasts for the first time, and the reduction in the carbon footprint, like I said, and it's coming in as the bottom line as a cost savings from what it was last year. So they've managed to achieve all three. I love the challenge to be able to do that. And now that I have the right tools, it's possible to do this and replicate it in other associations throughout the country.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing trifecta there. I can imagine they were very excited to hear that.
Yeah, it's funny. You experienced this too a bit, Colleen. Even though sales is not our forte or what we put as our number one skill set, you have to sell and market yourself. I don't always like selling, but man, I love selling this mobile unit because it's such a no-brainer and it's an easy pitch. When I say it's going to be better, cheaper, and greener, where does the no thank you fit into that? It has to be, okay, I'm listening.
Yep. No, that does make it easier when you're super passionate about something and have the product to back it, and you just spew excitement. So you don't even have to sell it. It just, like you said, sells itself. I have to point out though, whoever first came up with that broadcast studio idea for GBT must have been really smart.
Where is she now? I wonder what she's. I guess she's franchised the idea and is running around to associations throughout the world.
Too funny. Okay, moving on. All right. I want to talk trends and crystal ball. And 2025 is almost here, which I can't even believe. I keep writing next year in 24, and I'm like, wait a minute. Nope, we're done with that year. But what are some of those key trends that you're seeing for event production, and especially when it comes to associations, their conferences? What are you guys on the lookout for?
Sure. I've used this word a couple times already, but it's really storytelling. What we like doing, we're a small family-owned and operated company. We do massive events, but generally, if we have 8 to 10 projects a year, it's a lot. And so we get really personally involved in the storytelling and the messaging. We always start off by asking our clients how they would measure success. And if there's a comfort level for us to get involved in trying to achieve some of those business goals. Obviously, they know their industry better than we do, but having that knowledge of what it is. For example, if an association comes and says, hey, the most important thing for us is if we can increase the number of buyers we have attend. Okay, that's really important for me to know, because now we can work on building out programming that is going to be must attend for every buyer in the country. And it doesn't mean that we're ignoring exhibitors, but the exhibitors will be very happy for the programming to appeal to the buyers to get their numbers up, because everybody wins when there are more buyers at a trade show. And that's a formula we use often. It's how can we not only talk about what it is that's trending in a particular area and to have talking heads on stage, but how do we show it? And so we love to pre-produce video that can give you an example, that we can go and shoot a 3 to 4 minute mini doc that shows something in practice to show you what's possible to tee up a conversation on stage. That's a really an effective formula that again, as the differentiator is that we're producers and writers and not just an AV company. We're able to help tell that story in addition to making sure that it's lit well and shot well and that the scenic looks beautiful.
Yeah, I love that you're talking about storytelling and business goals. You're really speaking my language there. In our world of comms, we always say that up front. We're not going to just do comms for you or help you communicate for the sake of communicating. It's got to come back to business goals. And it sounds like it's the exact same thing here. You have to tell those stories of the association and their members, but it has to matter. And there has to be a why and a what are we doing this for?
Yep, for sure. And also, I'm so amazed so often with folks that work at these associations that have managed to be chameleons and manage so much. You're managing membership and marketing and promotion, but also there are always people that are tasked with, okay, you're going to be the one to put on this convention. And now you've made someone an event producer, whether they are or not, whether they've been trained or not, whether they have the experience or not. And that's a lot. That's more than sometimes leadership recognizes it, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes they think it's a matter of, okay, this person now is responsible for finding an AV company that can come in and build this out. And then that's the show. Well, that's not the show. That's the avenue for which you can start to tell the story. But how are you actually putting on the events? What's your process for thoughtful decision-making in how you're choosing your speakers? Are there more creative ways that you can tell the story rather than just having a speaker or a panel discussion? Can you do it through video? Can you more effectively show something that way? Can graphics help amplify and make your message more memorable? Are there more interactive and engaging ideas in your sessions that can have people go home and think more about what they saw? There are a lot of reasons that we go to trade shows, right? Sometimes it's networking, sometimes it's to buy services, sometimes it's education, sometimes it's because a certain city appeals to you and you can go hang out and have a social experience around colleagues. And none of those are bad reasons to go. They're all important. And one thing that we try to do is task ourselves with, how do we make sure that we are, instead of being something for everyone, that we're everything to someone. And a lot of times the trend that we're seeing is that it's about the buyers.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So what's really standing out to me is that you guys are just taking orders and filming this because you were told to, and you're building the story as a partner with these associations when you go in there. I'm curious logistically, who are you working with typically? Is it just an events person? Do you meet with more staff broadly at the association? Are you interacting with their members? How does that all come together? Because that's a pretty heavy lift to be able to be the ones helping direct that story.
Yeah, we cast a wide net. You spoke about GBT, that's a good example. We work with their operations folks. We work very closely with comms to make sure that we're lining up with what their marketing efforts will be. We work with their research department on what the trends will be that'll be announced on stage so that we can come up with different ways to create the content. We even went this year to JFK Airport for a couple of days and talked to business travelers and just get person on the street interviews and said, hey, yeah, talk to us about what it is you look for when you're booking a flight or choosing a hotel, or what's the hardest part about traveling? What do you like best? And it was something that we hadn't done in a while to touch base. It's the Global Business Travel Association. It's great to hear from those business travelers themselves. And Suzanne Neufung, their leader, their CEO, really wanted to tap into those voices and to give business travelers a chance to express how they're feeling. And I credit her greatly with that. it was a really effective segment that I saw lots of people taking notes when we played it in the main stage. It was not just hearing from us anecdotally, it was hearing directly from the people at the airport that are in the midst of their business travel.
Yeah. So obviously, COVID made some really big changes for events really quickly, and most things got canceled at first. And then we saw all virtual. Then there was a lot of hybrid. Are you still expecting to see a lot of hybrid, or is it going to be you're coming in person next year? What are we thinking on that front? What are you guys seeing?
I'm seeing that people are really looking for that physical intimacy of being in a shared space again. And COVID was a wild ride for all of us in so many different ways. While we were worried about protecting our families and caring for sick and dying, it was a pretty awful time. It was scary for everyone. It was, how do we emerge from this? How do we shift our businesses? In a way, we served a really important role for a lot of associations that were, okay, we can't do our in-person events. How do we keep this going? And we were getting calls from people that were saying, hey, we need TV producers because we have to make this into TV now. And so we were actually pretty busy in the beginning of COVID for that reason. Then once we started to emerge from COVID and started to meet in person again, all of the conventions and conferences were now, okay, we're in person, but we really liked the storytelling that we did through video. And how do we add to that? How do we keep some of those elements in that really helped us in the first place? And so it's become kind of a hybrid production. And I think there are a lot of things there were a lot of lessons learned, and there were a bunch of blessings in disguise that will, I think, stick now, even if we don't ever go back to a hybrid place. And again, another great thing for us was that we didn't have to pivot to, okay, how do we figure out how to produce video now? Because that's what my team has done for our entire careers, where there are lots of AV companies that were trying to figure out, okay, how do we shift from setting up speakers and lights and making stages beautiful? How do we shift now into producing video and content and recording voiceovers and all of that TV trade stuff that we do naturally?
Yeah, that's funny. I remember that was the driving reason at GBTA when we first started working with your dad initially, was that we wanted it to run like a TV show. And that was before COVID, before all of that. We just wanted the show to feel more like the way people watch things.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and it's interesting because some certain associations will play more to the people in the room, and then others say, okay, we have 5,000 here, but we know that there are 50,000 that are going to stream this afterwards. And let's make sure that we're being as respectful of that audience's time and making sure that we're serving their needs as well. So it's not just putting up a camera in the back of the room that feeds an iMag to blow up somebody's face. And then if you're watching it at home, you're saying, okay, I'm not capturing the same experience that everybody else did. And to your point, Colleen, like that's what we try to do. We try to build it out as if it's a full broadcast. So whether you're in the room or not, you get a lot more mileage out of the content far beyond the space itself.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. So you mentioned earlier about cost being the biggest hurdle for so many associations. So our audience here, it's largely association professionals, and they want to elevate their event production quality. They're always trying to do better. You know that. You've seen the passion that association professionals bring to what they're doing. What's the best advice you would give them to make the most out of new technologies and innovative solutions that are out there right now?
That's a really good question. So I think that tools are an important first step, but I think it's really important to engage people that know how to use them. I used to joke in my newsroom when I was a news director that, in the advent of smartphones, all of a sudden it was anyone with a smartphone is a citizen journalist that can go out. And I was like, I said, if I bought a pair of pliers and I called myself a citizen dentist, would you let me pull your teeth? Well, because I have the tool doesn't mean that I have the training on how to use it. And it's silly, but it's true. There's a big difference. We're all on Facebook. We see how video could be manipulated and how without context and without training, it's not just the tool that makes it. So what I always suggest is to engage producers that understands how you can incorporate those tools so that I can give you a whole list of ways that you can incorporate technology into your shows. Everything from including Slido for more interactive sessions to the broadcast studio that wonderfully talented woman back in 2016 invented.
She sounds amazing.
She does sound amazing. I would love to talk to her one day. But there are different creative ways that we can take advantage of the fact that tools are more accessible, and by more accessible, cheaper. Broadcast cameras back in the day when I was first a field producer at NBC, I remember the camera and the lens that would come on it when they were first coming at high def, it would be some $300,000 it would cost. And we'd have a cage in the back of the SUV that would hold it. Now, there are fantastic broadcast cameras that are broadcasting in 4K with cinematic lenses that a whole rig costs under 10.
Wow.
And it just means that high definition and higher production value is truly accessible to everyone. It's not just people with really high expense accounts and larger budgets.
Yeah, that's really well said and great advice for our listeners. I know, like I said, our association professionals, they're always trying to do better, to elevate, to make great experiences for their members. And I think you've left them with some really great insights and good things that they can do in the year ahead. But before we let you go, we like to wrap up every podcast with a quick little lightning round so our audience can get to know you on a more personal level. We'll start off real easy. Tell me where you grew up.
All right. I was born in Brooklyn, grew up in Staten Island and in Central Jersey.
All right. What's your Starbucks order or go-to morning drink routine if you're not a Starbucks fan?
No, coffee's for grown-ups. I don't drink coffee.
I mean, I drink hot chocolate every day, so I actually don't drink it.
Now we're talking. What about that? Caramel, peppermint. How many? Now, yeah, coffee. I drink coffee functionally when I'm really struggling. Like today, I've had coffee.
I get that as I sit here with my Coke Zero. So I hear you. Sometimes you need the caffeine.
Right.
All right. If you won the lottery tomorrow, would you still work?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. I always say that this is not a lightning round answer. I'm going to give a somewhat long one, but the best scenario is when you can find an intersection between what you want to do, what you're good at, and what's needed. And I really feel like I've met that trifecta right now. I'm super happy with what I'm doing.
That's pretty fantastic. And I've seen you guys in action, so I believe you. A lot of people tell me they're going to keep working, and I roll my eyes and say, no, you wouldn't. But I wouldn't be shocked if you didn't. All right. What's the last show you binge watched?
So we're in it right now. We're up to season 7 of Seinfeld.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Throwback. Yeah. All right.
Right. No, I love it. And it really holds.
I was going to say, I haven't seen it in years. Does it hold up?
Yep, it does. Okay. It's fantastic. I'm enjoying it. My wife's first time watching it.
No way.
Yeah, I was like, the marriage is not going to make it another 5 years if we don't start watching Seinfeld right now. So
that's hilarious.
For the sake of our children and our bonds, we're watching Seinfeld.
Too funny. All right. What's a food you can't live without?
Peanut butter.
Oh, good one. And finally, what's your bucket list travel destination?
Ooh, I want to go on a safari. Never been to Africa at all. I want to go on a safari.
That would be cool. Awesome. Phil, again, thank you so much. It's great to chat with you as always. And I just appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Yeah, likewise. This was a lot of fun.
That's a wrap for today's episode. The Association 100 Podcast is a production of Onward and Upward Marketing and Communications, where our mission is to make associations and nonprofits the go-to source in their industries through earned media and thought leadership. This podcast is an extension of the A100 newsletter, a bi-monthly collection of best practices, top trends, helpful ideas, and smart strategies delivered straight to your inbox. Have you undertaken a big change at your association, or do you have some words of wisdom for the trenches of association life? We want to hear from you, and so do our listeners. Drop us a note at info@onwardupward.com. That's info@onwardupward.com. If you like what you heard today, be sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star review, and share with your friends and colleagues. We're available anywhere podcasts are found. Come back next week for more association inspiration and insights. Thanks for tuning in.